Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I go by Londoncookss, and today we're making a big pot of slow cook oxtails. So today we're going to be using some ketchup, black pepper, pimento seeds, which I'm going to ground, Dale's liquid steak seasoning, browning, soy sauce, ginger, garlic, and pimento seasoning in the Grace brand, Maggi all-purpose seasoning, garlic powder. I also have 3 pounds of oxtails, which we will clean together, 2 heaping tablespoons of fresh blend, and I will list the list for the ingredients below, 3 tablespoons of dark brown sugar, and some thyme. So I'm going to get started by cleaning my oxtails using a kitchen chair. You guys, I think this step is very important simply because once you start cooking your oxtails, you want your gravy to be nice and hearty and rich, not mainly oil. And if you leave the fat on there, trust me, you will end up with a pot of oil. So I'm just removing the excess fat by cutting it away using my kitchen shears. And once I'm done, I'm going to wash my oxtails using cool water and vinegar. Here are my oxtails once I have removed majority of the fat from there. And I forgot to mention earlier, if this is your first time here, if you're new here, go ahead and hit the pause button and then hit the subscribe button. I promise you will not regret it. You will love it here. Next, we're going to get started with seasoning our oxtails. So we're going to be using 1 tablespoon each of all-purpose seasoning, garlic powder, Grace, ginger, garlic, and pimento seasoning, half a tablespoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of the Dale's liquid steak seasoning, and 2 tablespoons of our fresh blend. I also drizzled a little bit of oil on my oxtails just to help the seasonings to marinate a little bit. Nothing crazy, you guys. When working with browning, I like to leave my browning for very last, meaning after I've added all of my seasonings and everything, I like to add my browning very last. I mentioned this in almost every single video that I work with browning. I like to leave my browning last simply because once I season my meat, you guys, I like to somewhat eyeball my meat. So if it looks like it needs more seasoning, I go ahead and add more seasoning. Personally, I feel like if you add your browning along with the seasonings, then it's going to be a little hard to see this, but that's just my personal thing, you guys. So I ended up using about 1.5 tablespoons of browning, but I'm going to definitely advise that you add your browning, especially if this is your first time working with browning. Add it little by little, give your meat a stir, and judge the color. You do not want this to be black and you do not want it to be too dark. Little by little and you'll be fine. Now that our oxtails have been fully marinated, I'm coating my pot with some olive oil and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. I'm doing this over a medium-high heat, you guys, and I'm going to allow the sugar to brown or to burn and then add my oxtails. I'm now going to allow my oxtails to brown for about 20 minutes or so before adding anything to the pot. Personally, I do not like to bite into pimento seeds while eating my food, so I prefer to ground them. And as you can see, I'm not using as much compared to if I was using the actual seeds, simply because once you ground pimento seeds, the strength intensifies. Now that my oxtails have been browning for about the last 20 minutes or so, it's time to get the pot ready to go into simmer mode. So I added the grounded pimento, and I'm also going in with 2 large tablespoons of my fresh blend. I'm also going to go in with about a half a tablespoon of the grazed ginger, garlic, and pimento seasoning, and about 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Next, I'm gonna go in with some hot water. You guys, this is detrimental. Hot water, not lukewarm water, hot water. Boiling hot water. I added enough to my pot just to cover the oxtails, but this is very important, you guys, as the hot water will help to make the meat tender. Now, I'm also adding a little bit more browning in here simply because I'm Jamaican and these oxtails are a little bit too white for me. So I went in with about a half a tablespoon of browning. And if you do this part, I want you to pay attention to this, or this will be the trick. Whatever color your water or the liquid in your pot is the color that your oxtails will turn out. So you can definitely use that as a guide to determine the color of your oxtail. Now I'm going to cover my pot and lower my heat to low, and I mean low, you guys, and I'm going to leave this alone and check it every 30 minutes or so. Okay, so I'm not going to talk you guys to death throughout this entire tutorial. So just in summary, my cooking process for the oxtails will be that I'm going to check my pot every 30 to 45 minutes for 2 things. The first thing is to ensure that I always have enough liquid in my pot and that everything hasn't dried out or there's still enough in here to cook my oxtails. Secondly, and most importantly, for the tenderness. So every other time that I open my pot, you will see that I will use a fork to check the tenderness of the meat. And I will do this for about the next 2.5 hours or so, until we get to the last hour of cooking the oxtails. Then we're going to reseason our pot. If you must also add water to your pot throughout the cooking process, again, you guys, do not go in with room temperature water, cold water. Hot boiling water is what you will be using throughout this entire process. Again, it's very, very important to help with the tenderness of the meat. My oxtails have been cooking for almost 3 hours, and so I think it's now time to reseason our pot. Now, you guys, I know I said to do this in the last hour, but something I want for you guys to pay attention to. A few things will determine how long your oxtails will cook. The sizes definitely will have an effect on how long it cooks. So throughout this entire process, I will definitely suggest to do as I recommend to continue to check the tenderness. You will know when your pot is ready to be reseasoned once your oxtails are almost cooked. So to reseason my pot, at this point in time, you guys, my heat is back to a medium heat, and I added a few grounded pimento seeds, 2 more really large tablespoons of fresh blend, a few sprigs of thyme, 1 whole Scotch bonnet pepper, and this is going to give the oxtails a nice aroma. I'm also going in with 1 teaspoon of the ginger, garlic, and pimento seasoning, and also 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. I did also add just a little bit more hot water in here, simply because my pot was looking a little light on the gravy. I'm going to allow this to continue to cook for about another 8 minutes or so, and then I'm going to go in with about 3/4 of a cup of ketchup and about 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. I allowed my oxtails to continue to cook for an extra 10 minutes after adding the ketchup and the soy sauce, and then I added my beans very last. Your beans honestly don't take any time at all to cook, you guys. As you can see, they're already tender in the can. So I left them in here for about 5 minutes or so, or until my gravy was at the consistency that I wanted it to be, and then I turned off my stove. My oxtails are now done, and look at that, you guys. Do you see the gravy? Not an ounce of oil. And that's why it's important to remove majority of the fat when prepping these. So just for a recap on these oxtails, remove the fat, most importantly, if you want to have nice, hearty, and delicious gravy without oil. Secondly, I do recommend to allow your oxtails to marinate overnight at least, but the longer you allow them to marinate, the better your flavor will be. Third, bear in mind that the sizes of your oxtails will affect your cooking time. So even though these took me 3 hours to cook, depending on the sizes of your oxtails, they may take longer to cook. And lastly, your pot is ready to be reseasoned once your oxtails are almost cooked, meaning once they are almost tender and ready to go. All right, y'all, this is how we're coming in on a Sunday. Oxtails with beans, rice and peas, mac and cheese, steamed cabbage, and plantains, all of which I do have recipes for, so I will definitely list the link to these below. Also, don't forget to check out my website for recipes that I do not share on here. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, definitely leave those in the comments below. I hope this tutorial was helpful. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for stopping by. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on.